So today we're going to look at Genesis 1. We're just going to talk about the wonder that was the creation by God of the creation. That's all we're going to do. I'm going to read it. I'm going to try to get you to imagine it and understand what's going on at this moment. I'm in the Apostles' Bible, which is using the Septuagint. And as you know from my other videos, that's a more reliable version because it's older than the Masoretic text, which is the Hebrew Old Testament. It's older by 1,250 years. So, it's 250 years before Christ that it was translated from the Hebrew at that time into Greek for all of the Jews who were in the diaspora, who are scattered around the Greek-speaking world. And so it was decided to translate that into Greek for them. Thus the Septuagint that we have, that the Old Testament was based on until the Masoretic text arose around 900 to 1000 AD. And it was that was developed by the Jews, the lineage of Jews who crucified Christ and decided to rewrite the Old Testament to fit what they told each other was the true meaning behind the scriptures. So it was a group of men who were trying to determine what God should have written and didn't like what he wrote. And so over time they started rewriting the Old Testament to fit their views. And so it would agree with what they thought. And that was the purpose. They didn't even make any apologies for it. They said, we're going to take the oral tradition, we're going to rewrite the written tradition to reflect the oral tradition. And one of the main reasons they said was that the prophecies in the Old Testament that were being used by the Christians to prove that Jesus was the Messiah had to stop. And so they especially focused on those. Now, I've talked about this a lot, but I wanted to say it again in case someone's just coming in and listening to this video and hasn't heard any of my other videos. So that's why I'm using the Apostles' Bible, which is an English translation of the Septuagint. Oftentimes you'll see it abbreviated with capital L, capital X, okay, which is the letter 70 in Roman numerals. So, because Septuagint means 70, because the story is that there were 70 translators, each locked into their independent cells like monks, who translated the entire Old Testament, and all the translations came out exactly the same. So this is the miracle that they point to for the Septuagint. Nevertheless, Jesus and the apostles, disciples and apostles, all quoted, mostly, the most quoted manuscripts were the Septuagint. So it's very reliable. Let's start with Genesis 1:1. In the beginning, God made the heaven and the earth. So, this word beginning in the Greek means beginning and authority. And we see it in John 1 also, when it describes Jesus as the Word of God, in arche and hologos. So here it's also in arche, okay? And we could even see it here if we switch over to the Septuagint. I'll highlight the first verse, switch to Septuagint, and here it is, en arche. That's exactly what it says right there, in arche. Okay? So, it starts out the same. John 1 starts out the same as Genesis 1. In the beginning and authority, God made the heaven and the earth. Well, of course authority, because how else could he do that? So he made both the heaven and the earth. But the earth was unsightly and unfurnished, and darkness was over the deep. And the Spirit of God moved over the water. So, you got the earth, and clearly it's got water on it, but it was unsightly, like nothing to look at, and unfurnished, empty. There was nothing useful in it. There was nothing to look at and nothing useful in it. And there was darkness covering the deep. You couldn't see deep down in. Some waters you can look in and you can see 100 feet down. Other waters are so murky or so dark that the light doesn't penetrate it. So in this case, when the earth was created, there was water, of course, on it, and there was darkness covering the depths of the water, and the Spirit of God moved over the water, Okay, so that's the picture. That's what we have in the first two verses before God starts creating everything else. So you've got the heaven. There are, in Greek, three heavens. There's the heaven where the birds fly. There's the heaven where God lives. And then there's a heaven where the stars reside. And so there are three heavens. So generally that word is in the plural. Let me see here what it is. It should be the heavens. No, it's heaven. It's just a heaven here. In the New Testament, it's almost exclusively plural. So here's just the heaven and the earth. So it's the whole group of it before it's divided, because remember, it hasn't been divided yet. So it's just two different spaces, one with earth, the water and ground in it, I guess. And then you've got everything else that's not that. And it hasn't been divided yet. There are no lights in it. There's nothing there. Okay? So that's why it's singular, I'm sure. So that's the scenario. Now we get to verse 3. And God said, now this is where I went in and actually translated this, because I knew that this is a very weak translation. Even though every translation uses this, it's still weak. This command. They oftentimes soften it or weaken it with may, right? Or let. So, and God said, let there be light, right? But that's not correct. So, I mean, it's got the passive construction. So let there be light. It's still not good. So my translation of this is light be made to be. Light be made to be. All right. So it keeps that construction where something's happening to light. Because that's the form of the verb. Something's happening to light, but it's a command. It's a command for something to happen to light. So light be made to be. Light be made to be. And God said, light be made to be. And there was light. So suddenly there was just light out of nowhere. And it's not coming from any source. Because there are no sources yet. There's no sun, there's no moon, there's no stars. There's nothing there that's emanating that light. So light itself existed before any of the sun or the stars or the moon or any of it. Light existed. It just was there. And God saw the light, that it was good. So light was good in the beginning. And God divided between the light and the darkness. Now you might ask, well, where'd the darkness come from? Well, darkness isn't a thing. And this testifies to it, because God didn't have to create the darkness. The darkness was a separation from the light, an absence of light, which is technically what we say in science as well. That light is something and darkness is the absence of that something. So God divided between the light and the darkness. So before he divided, light was everywhere. Instantly, when he created it, light was everywhere. And then he divided it out. So there were places of darkness where there was no light. Keep in mind that my first studies were astrophysics. That was my first. So when I look at this, I look at it also from the perspective of astrophysics. So it says, and God called the light day, and the darkness he called night. So there was no night in the beginning. It was light all the time. So he separated that out even before there was a sun. And we look and we say, well, the day is caused by the sun. It's not caused by the sun. The day and the night were created distinctly before there was a sun. The sun was placed in the day. It's not what creates the day. But that's not what we're taught. But that's what this says. And God called the light day, and the darkness he called night, and there was evening and there was morning the first day. You cannot have the first day until God creates day and night. And yet the sun wasn't created yet, neither were the stars. So day and night, it's something separate from the sun. The sun is placed within the day, like within a sea of light. So let's keep going. So that's the first day. And God said, let there be a firmament in the midst of the water, and let it be a division between water and water, and it was so. And you're thinking, what in the world is he talking about? What is this all about? And God said, let there be a firmament in the midst of the water, and let it be a division between water and water. So he's separating out two kinds of water, and it was so. And God made the firmament, and God divided between the water which was under the firmament and the water which was above the firmament. Okay, some of you are asking, what is a firmament? Let me get a dictionary definition for you. Well, rather than looking up the English, let's just look at the Greek, okay? And you can read with me here. So here's the word that we're trying to find here, astereoma. So that's the word, and it says something established. When it says IE, don't even, just ignore that, because most of the time that's wrong, or it's not really quite relevant. We want the literal meaning, something established. And it says it comes from this word here. So we can click on that. And it says to solidify. So this is a verb now. So that was a noun. This is the verb, to solidify. So it's something solidified. Forget the IE and everything after it. Something solidified. This comes from stiff, which is an adjective. Stiff. Okay? So something made stiff. Let's keep going. That comes from another one. That was stereos. It comes from istemi, right? Which is to stand. All right, maybe it does. It could, right? But it's to stand, and it makes sense. Okay, so something this made stiff that is permanent, right? I don't know if you could say permanent, but definitely established. So something established between the waters. And so you have the waters above, which is where the rain comes from, and you have the waters below, which is where the lakes and oceans are eventually formed. That's what's being described. So when God made the firmament, and God divided between the water which was under the firmament and the water which was above the firmament. So the firmament is this space between the water that is liquid on the land and the water which is vapor in the air. So this whole area is the firmament. And God called the firmament heaven. And God saw that it was good, and there was evening and there was morning the second day. So this space between the liquid water and the vapor water, he called heaven. Verse 9. And God said, let the water which is under the heaven be collected into one place, and let the dry land appear. And it was so. So God started receding the water in certain places to let there be land, like a surface, right? They could be stood on. And let the dry land appear, and it was so. And the water which was under the heaven, which was collected into its places, and the dry land appeared. So the lakes and the seas and the oceans, as opposed to the continents and the land. So it appeared, and it was so. Okay. Verse 10, and God called the dry land earth, and the gathering of the waters he called seas. And God saw that it was good. It was good to separate out that water from the land. He looked at it and he called it good. Verse 11, and God said, let the earth bring forth the herb of grass, bearing seed according to its kind and according to its likeness, and the fruit tree bearing fruit, whose seed is in it according to its kind on the earth, and it was so. Now, we're still in the same day. Okay, so the second day happened in verse 8. And so now he's gathered the waters into one place so that dry land, into different places, so dry land has appeared. And then he starts to, and he called it earth and seas. saw that it was good, and now he's started to bring forth the herb of the grass bearing seed and the fruit trees that have a seed in it, according to all of its kind. And verse 12, and the earth brought forth the herb of grass bearing seed according to its kind and according to its likeness. And the fruit tree bearing fruit whose seed is in it according to its kind on the earth. And God saw it was good. So the grass and the fruit trees were formed. Verse 13, and there was evening and there was morning the third day. So in this third day, God did a lot more than what he did in the second day. In the third day, he separated out that water into seas to create earth also. Then he brought forth the grasses and the fruit trees. Right? And so here he is. He sees that it's good and he calls it the third day. Verse 14. And God said, let there be lights. Right? What was our translation before for that? Light be made to be. All right? So, and God said, lights be made to be in the firmament of the heaven to give light upon the earth to divide between day and night. And let them be for signs and for seasons and for days and for years. Okay, so now we've got lights in the heaven, in the firmament of the heaven, to give light upon the earth and to divide between day and night. He's already created day and night, but he's giving those as signs for seasons and to make it as a sign of day and night. So he created those. These are the lights in the firmament of the heavens. These are the stars. Let them be signs, for seasons, and for days, and for years. So not only for seasons, but for signs also. And 15, and let them be for light in the firmament of the heaven, so as to shine upon the earth. And it was so. So they shined all the way upon the earth. 16, and God made two great lights, the greater light for regulating the day, and the lesser light for regulating the night, the stars also. So now we have a little confusion, because that first one sounds like he made stars. It says, let there be lights in the firmament of the heaven to give light upon the earth, to divide between day and night, and let them be for signs and for seasons and for days and for years. Well, that's describing stars, right? And the sun and the moon, for that matter, because we use those for that as well. And let them be for light in the firmament of the heaven, so as to shine upon the earth. And it was so, and God made two great lights. So now he's getting into detail of those lights he created. So don't get confused over that. God is now going to, now Genesis is going into description of details of those lights. What were those lights he created? God made two great lights, a greater light for regulating the day and the lesser light for regulating the night. That's the sun and the moon. The sun is the greater one regulating the day, it's brighter. And the moon is the lesser light regulating the night. And then it says the stars also. 17, and God placed them in the firmament of the heaven. So he created them first, and then he placed them in the firmament. Very interesting. So as to shine upon the earth, and to regulate day and night, and to divide between light and darkness. And God saw that it was good. And there was evening, and there was morning, the fourth day. Okay, so this is really interesting, okay? I saw the word regulate, and I thought, that is a key, that there's something there in that Greek word. So it is our word arche. It's right here. So you see that. That's alpha, A. That's rho, R. That's ch, e, I, n. Archein. That's a special form of it. Okay, it comes from archo right here. So it is a verb to be first. And if we keep it in context of that dual meaning of arche, where it's both beginning and authority, it's not just first, it's also over, like authoritative. So to be first and authoritative. And when you think about it, it's saying this next is the day. The day it's of the day. So to be first of the day, but also to be in authority of the day. So it's to be first and in authority of the day. And every day starts out how? Every day starts out with sunrise, right? So it is literally the beginning of the day, but it also governs the day because it determines when it starts and when it ends. So it marks out the beginning and the end of the day, and it's there throughout the day. So it is governing the day from beginning to end, and it is the beginning of the day. So it's beautiful. Kai archen tes hemeras. So, and to regulate the day and night. It is the beginning of the day, and when it ends the day, that's the beginning of the night. So, there you go. And by that, it governs those. And to divide between the light and the darkness. And God saw that it was good. And there was evening and there was morning the fourth day. Verse 20. And God said, let the waters bring forth reptiles having life. So, and that's what our science has shown too, is that the reptiles came out of the water. So, of course, our science says a lot of other things that are absurd. And winged creatures flying above the earth in the firmament of heaven. And it was so. So we have two very broad categories of animals, right? The birds and the reptiles that are created at this point. They're the first animals mentioned that are created, the reptiles and the birds. And God made great whales and every living reptile, which the waters brought forth according to their kinds, and every creature that flies with wings according to its kind. And God saw that they were good. So when it says reptiles, here it says great whales. And whales, let me have a look at that word just to see what it is in particular. So what it is, it's a big fish that gapes. Okay, it gapes for its prey, for example. So that's what it is. And what's even more interesting is right down here it says, and every soul, that's not in the text, English text, and every soul, this is breath or soul, psyche. So every soul of living reptiles, and every soul of living reptiles, it's not in the text. It says, in every living reptile. It omits the word soul from the text. And God made great whales. We can call them whales. It's not necessarily whales. It's any fish that gapes for its prey. So it could be carnivore even, right? And every soul of living reptiles, and it's actually plural. It's not singular. Which the waters brought forth according to their kinds. And every creature that flies with wings according to its kind. And God saw that they were good. And God blessed them, saying, increase and multiply, and fill the waters and the seas, and let the creatures that fly be multiplied on the earth. And there was evening and there was morning the fifth day. So he blesses the creatures and tells them to multiply. Okay? Increase and multiply, and fill the waters and the seas, and let the creatures that fly be multiplied on the earth. And there was evening and there was morning the fifth day. So God gave them a blessing to multiply and increase in number. That's the fish in the sea, including the great fish that gapes for its prey, the reptiles as well that were in the sea and coming out of the sea, and the birds as well that were filling the heavens and flying. So then verse 24, this is the sixth day now. And God said, let the earth bring forth the living creature according to its kind, cattle and reptiles and wild beasts of the earth according to their kind. And it was so. So here you have the cattle, the reptiles, and wild beasts, lions and tigers and elephants and all kinds of wild beasts. So obviously the cattle are not part of wild beasts because they're domesticated, right? So, and cattle according to their kind, and all the reptiles of the earth according to their kind. So, and God made the wild beasts of the earth according to their kind, each according to their kind, tigers and lions and elephants, and cattle according to their kind. There's not just one kind of cattle. There are oxen, there are bison, there are cows, there are different kinds of cows, and all the reptiles of the earth according to their kind, and God saw that they were good. None of them are evil. All of it was created good. 26. So everything he's created so far has been created good. 26. And God said, let us make man according to our image and likeness, and let them have dominion over the fish of the sea, and over the flying creatures of heaven, and over the cattle on all of the earth, and over all the reptiles that creep on the earth. This is pretty mighty compared to what he's done so far. Verse 27, and God made man. According to the image of God, he made him, male and female, he made them. Now this is the first creature that he has specifically mentioned that he made them male and female. The first one, he specifically mentions he made male and female. Verse 28. And God blessed them. The others didn't say he blessed them, but it was a blessing. But this specifically says it's a blessing. And God blessed them, saying, increase and multiply. And God blessed them, saying, increase and multiply, and fill the earth and subdue it, and have dominion over the fish of the seas, and flying creatures of heaven, and all the cattle, and all the earth, and all the reptiles that creep on the earth. Okay, so God is commanding them to increase and multiply and fill the earth, and to take control of it, subdue it, and have dominion over these, rule over them. And God said, behold, I have given to you every seed-bearing herb, sowing seed, which is upon all the earth, and every tree which has in itself the fruit of the earth, the fruit of the seed. I skipped a line. The fruit of the seed that is sown, to you it shall be for food. So grass and fruit are for their food. The first people, Adam and Eve. The grass and the fruit. And to all the wild beasts of the earth, and to all the flying creatures of heaven, and to every reptile creeping on the earth, which has in itself the breath of life, even every green plant for food. So this time the devil chose to use some sort of flying helicopter or something. Okay. So, and to all the wild beasts of the earth, and to all the flying creatures of heaven, and to every reptile creeping on the earth, which has in itself the breath of life, even every green plant for food, and it was so. Okay? So what is it saying? And to all the wild beasts of the earth, and flying creatures and reptile on the earth, which has in itself breath of life, even every green. Is it saying they're giving the green plant for food to these creatures also? Yes. And God saw all the things that he had made, and behold, they were very good. Not just good, very good. And there was evening, and there was morning, the sixth day. I'm going to make sure that very is actually there in the text in the Greek. As I suspected, it's not good. It's kala. Kala means properly or beautiful. Like properly, like orderly and beautiful in that way. It says, but chiefly figuratively good. So we just ignore that. It doesn't mean that then, right? But kalos means properly or beautiful, like orderly. It was very orderly, very good in that way. So the devil came around again for a second round. All right, so here we go. We're not finished yet because the creation isn't finished. It says in chapter 2, verse 1, thus the heavens and the earth were finished. See, it isn't finished until chapter 2. And the whole host of them, like every individual thing in them, the whole host of them, every individual thing. And God finished. Now notice that the whole host represents all of those things that belong to God. Whereas the word world means the same thing, but those that don't belong to God. World means the same thing as whole host does, because it's a whole collection of individuals. That's what that word cosmos means. It doesn't mean the existence or earth or something like that, or world. It doesn't mean that at all. It means a whole collection of individuals, right? Especially the outward part of those as they show off, right? Like ornaments. So, but here it says, thus the heavens and the earth were finished, and the whole host of them. And God finished on the sixth day his works which he made. And he ceased on the seventh day from all his works which he made. So he stopped altogether on the seventh day. And God blessed the seventh day and sanctified it. He sanctified the seventh day because the first 6 days were full of activity and creating things, and all these individual hosts that were part of the whole host. And he created all of that. And the seventh day was so unique from all the other 6 because there was no activity. And in that way he sanctified it. He made it terrifyingly clean, because in it he ceased from all his works which God began to do. So let me just read that again, verse 3, because it's very important. And God blessed the seventh day and sanctified it, because in it he ceased from all his works which God began to do. So the most important thing is that sixth day was unique from the seventh day was unique from all the other 6 days. Okay, that seventh day, he blessed the seventh day. The seventh day was unique from all the other 6 days. All the other 6 days shared this commonality of this work and creating and seeing that it was good and calling it was good and then doing the next thing the next day. The seventh day was unique. And so it was sanctified. It was special, but it was special in a terrifyingly clean way. It was absent of activity. And so after having 6 days where everything's being created and organized, and at the end, it says that it was very beautiful in organization. And it was. And then suddenly the seventh day, God's not doing anything. That's kind of scary, that contrast suddenly like that, where it's a complete abstinence from it. And that's what the seventh day is about, is abstinence. So if you want to celebrate the seventh day as a celebration of the Sabbath, one of the best ways is to abstain from everything as much as you can, or just choose certain things to abstain from that you do regularly through the other 6 days. Just choose that day and abstain from it. That's a beautiful way of celebrating that day and how God abstained from his work. So it says, verse 4, this is the book of the generations of heaven and earth when they were made, in the day in which the Lord God made the heaven and the earth. And it goes into it again. There's another summary of the creation. And we'll leave that for another time. So you can see that this is beautiful. And it goes all the way through verse 3 of chapter 2 from Genesis 1:1. Don't exclude those first 3 verses of chapter 2. So may the Lord bless you as you seek him with all your heart. Remember to subscribe down below and like the video and share it on your Facebook and other social media. And then make a comment, whether a question or a comment. We read all of them and we try to respond to all. Get on over to our website, The Rooted Word, and start reading the translation and also the articles we've posted. It's at therootedword.com, therootedword.com. And may the Lord bless you as you seek him with all your heart.